How's it going, everybody? It's Warren, and welcome to this week's episode of Theory Thursdays, my segment where you all submit your theories each week. I pick 5 and then you vote on which one was your favorite. This week we have some really good and interesting theories that were submitted. If you would like to submit your own theory for a chance to end up in an episode, you can find the email to send it to and the instructions in the description down below. Alright, so let's dive into some theories. The first one comes from Chris Godfrey, and Chris has a theory about Doctor Strange. Chris says that he doesn't think Doctor Strange was really dusted, but he wanted Thanos to believe he was dead, so using his magic, he mocked the effect of his dusting. He says, think of Izanagi from Naruto that allows the self to use a certain plan of actions and if killed or injured badly, will undo the wounds, giving a chance to try a new strategy. Maybe he manipulated his fate to be dusted, then using a said Izanagi-like ability undid his death. Chris believes that he then hides in either the mirror dimension, dark dimension, quantum realm, or other. Somewhere he won't be detected by Thanos. But he will return before a crucial time to help. But he also could have taken some of the other Avengers who were on Titan as well. Chris says, think about it, isn't it weird that the 50-50 snap took all of the Guardians of the Galaxy except for Rocket along with Spider-Man and Doctor Strange, leaving only Iron Man and Nebula on Titan? It could have been chance, or there is a plan that has not yet unfolded. But Doctor Strange isn't one to leave things to chance, so either he has a specific plan that doesn't rely on his presence to be 100% sure, or he will be there to manipulate events to ensure the victory. This is a good theory, and honestly not something that I would put past Doctor Strange. After all, he is the master of the mystic arts. And like Chris said, he doesn't leave things to chance, hence why he went forward in time and saw all of the different scenarios. I'm not sure if he could have prevented all of the other heroes from being snapped away, but I definitely think that he could somehow prevent himself from being snapped away. So I would definitely not be surprised if we saw Doctor Strange wind up in Avengers Endgame still alive, not really being dusted. So that's it for theory number 1, let's go to theory number 2. Theory number 2 comes from Nico Gonzalez, and Nico says that in Avengers Endgame, Tony will record the message we see in the first trailer for Pepper, then start thinking about all the things that have happened up to this point. Him becoming Iron Man, saving the world multiple times, falling in love with Pepper, and then he remembers the dream that he had about having a child with Pepper. After this, he stands up and realizes that Nebula has been watching him. He walks past her and she asks him where he's going, and he says, "I'm not going to die like this." He starts tinkering with a part of the ship and Nebula taps him on the shoulder. He turns around to see Nebula holding Rocket's toolbox and she says, "I'll help." Cut to later, Tony and Nebula land in Wakanda and are instantly charged at by the remaining people of Wakanda. Having just lost most of their people, the Wakandans don't know who to trust. Tony and Nebula fend off a few, but soon they are surrounded by the Wakandans and one of them yells, "State your purpose." Tony says, "We just returned from fighting an alien with a glorified mitten." The Wakandans, realizing Tony is on their side, explain what happened and Tony says, "I need to find the Avengers, but first I need a new suit." The Wakandans give Tony anything he needs to make his new suit. Eventually Tony asks for the strongest metal that they have and they give Tony adamantium. They call it a sacred metal in which is stronger than vibranium and even they don't have a lot of it. Tony studies the vibranium and adamantium and figures out that there are both advantages and disadvantages to both, so he ends up using both in the suit and calls it the Bleeding Edge armor. I like this theory, especially since I've done a video on how Tony Stark could possibly make a vibranium Iron Man suit. It would make sense that at some point in time, Tony ends up in Wakanda. They're the most technologically advanced city in the world, and Tony is going to need a better suit to fight Thanos since he already lost with his old suit. And it would be crazy cool if somehow the Wakandans had adamantium, which would be a little nod to Wolverine. So this is something I could definitely see happening, and I really would hope they would say something about adamantium. So that's theory number 2, on to number 3. Number 3 comes from Elijah Maris, and Elijah states that the Russo brothers followed way closer to the comics than we thought, and Lady Death is actually in the movie. When Thanos does the snap and appears in the Soul World after talking to Gamora, he is actually speaking to Lady Death, who does have the power to transform into other figures and travel within the Infinity Stones. And in the comics there was a special moment when Death revealed herself to Thanos and revealed her intentions to him in the first place. Thanos wiped out half of the plants and animals, to which was counterproductive to his plan, as well as lied about Gamora's planet flourishing. This was because his real goal was never to do that balancing of the universe. The villain of the MCU is not an eco-terrorist. It was to follow Death and do whatever she said for him to do regardless of his reason. He is confused by her temptations. Also, the only reason he really loved Gamora is because Death has been appearing to him in that form for a long time, and he confuses his love for Death with Gamora. He truly is cold-hearted and only loves Gamora because of his love for Mistress Death. When he is speaking to baby Gamora, this is confirmed by her saying, "Did you do it? How much did it cost?" Elijah thinks this is one of the conversations that he has had all the time with Death because, like in the comics, she has been disturbing him throughout his childhood since he was a child. This is a weird consultant he goes to and goes to often. Baby Gamora in the Soul World is Lady Death. That's why she had her own little altar thing where she was standing in Soul World when he saw her there. She is a deity, and the creepy music playing plays onto his derangement. His troubled face plays to his real intentions. This is certainly an interesting take on Lady Death. She is a huge part in the comics. She is the whole reason Thanos does the snap. And in the post-credit scene of the first Avengers movie, they reference Death. So she clearly exists in the MCU. And Elijah is right, him killing half of the plants and the animals is counterproductive to his plan. So perhaps Lady Death does appear to Thanos in the form of baby Gamora. And Thanos has actually talked to her very often throughout time, and his real reason for performing the snap is for Lady Death. So that's theory number 3, on to theory number 4. Theory number 4 comes from Susan Dolan, and Susan says that despite all the hoopla over the quantum realm and time travel, she personally thinks that it's all misdirection to create hype. Ant-Man gets out of the quantum realm the same way he did last time, blue growth disk in his regulator. Finding Hank, Janet, and Hope gone, he tries to get a hold of Lewis and his company and can't. Seeing all of the chaos caused by the snap, Scott does the only thing he can do, finds the Avengers with Hank Pym's lab in shrunken form. Rocket takes half of the Avengers into space, while Thor takes the other half to Nidavellir via Stormbreaker for weaponry. Rocket rescues Tony and Nebula. Rocket then takes them to Nidavellir, and Tony and Rocket do what they do best. Thor travels to the remaining 7 realms to raise an army against Thanos. He then astro travels to Valhalla to get Loki and possibly Odin to put Loki on the throne of Jotunheim to recruit the Frost Giants. The battle may start on Titan 2, but it will end on Sanctuary as Tony's vision in Age of Ultron with Thanos' death and the reversal of the snap. Then Doctor Strange, once more in possession of the Time Stone, erases everything Thanos did and no one has any clue as to what happened. Hence, no one mentioning it in Spider-Man Far From Home, cause Peter never left the bus and he got to go to the Museum of Modern Art. Susan says that there are 2 possibilities for the end credit baddie, only 2, Mangog and Archon. I believe that this theory could be true based on the sole fact that the Russo brothers are the kings at trolling us. Yes, they are making us think that the Avengers will go back in time via the quantum realm, but they made us think a lot for Avengers Infinity War. And they did say that we truly have no idea what Avengers Endgame is going to be about. But we all think it's about time travel, so does that mean it's not about time travel? And also I think the Avengers going to Nidavellir makes perfect sense. Thor and Rocket were just there and they saw how powerful Stormbreaker is, so why wouldn't the Avengers have weapons made out of Uru metal? Plus this happens in the Fear Itself comic storyline. The Avengers all go to Nidavellir and they all get weapons, which is something I think would be really awesome to see in Endgame, but something that makes perfect sense as well. And of course it does make perfect sense that the final battle would end on the Sanctuary just like in Tony's vision in Age of Ultron. So that's it for theory number 4, on to the final theory, theory number 5. Theory number 5 comes from Harris Balan from Malaysia, and Harris thinks that all the scenes that we saw in the second Avengers Endgame trailer with all the destruction in the background is Xandar. Because behind Nebula in this scene, he thinks he can see some Nova Corps ships, which were probably destroyed by Thanos in the first act where he went to get the Power Stone from Xandar. Because in Avengers Infinity War, they didn't show this scene, but Thor does say that Thanos decimated Xandar. And Harris thinks that the reason they didn't show it in Avengers Infinity War is because they will show it in Avengers Endgame. And Harris says that you can also see a little purple behind Captain America, which is probably them fighting Thanos with the Power Stone. This could be their first strike against Thanos on Xandar once Ant-Man has arrived, but they will fail at first, which explains the time jump between Natasha's hair changing. I think this theory makes perfect sense. I think that we definitely did not see Thanos get the Power Stone from Xandar in Avengers Infinity War because we're going to see it in Endgame. And since the Power Stone is the first stone that Thanos collects, it would make sense that they would go to Xandar to try and stop him from getting the first one. And Harris does make some good points about what we see from the trailer. There does seem to be a little bit of purple in the background in Captain America's scene. And it does look like there could be some remains of Nova Corps ships behind Nebula. And if this is the first attack that the Avengers do on Thanos, it will probably take place within the first 15 to 20 minutes of the movie. And Kevin Feige said that the footage in the trailer will most likely only be from the first 15 to 20 minutes of the movie. So this theory could make a lot of sense. So that's it for this week's theories. Let's do a quick recap. Theory number 1 is that Doctor Strange is not really dusted. He used a spell to make Thanos believe that he was dusted, but he will come back and play a big role in Avengers Endgame. Theory number 2 is that Tony Stark and Nebula will end up in Wakanda and Tony Stark will build a new Iron Man suit out of vibranium and adamantium. Theory number 3 is that Thanos actually performed the snap because of Lady Death, and Lady Death has been taking the form of baby Gamora all throughout Thanos' life. Theory number 4 is that the Avengers actually won't use the Quantum Realm to time travel, but the Avengers will go to Nidavellir and then Thor will go to the Seven Realms and gather an army to fight against Thanos. And theory number 5 is that in the second Avengers Endgame trailer, in the scenes where all the destruction is happening, is actually on Xandar. So those are this week's theories for Theory Thursday. Be sure to vote on which one you thought was your favorite. And again, if you would like to submit your own theory for a chance to end up in an episode, you can find the email to send it to and the instructions in the description down below. And of course, if you're new, be sure to subscribe so you can stay up to date on all Theory Thursdays and everything relating to Marvel and Avengers Endgame. As always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.